In today's episode, I am talking to Lucy Hall, who is one of the co-founders of Loanhood. This is a clothes swapping app working on renting the clothes that you might want in your wardrobe, but only for a limited time. There's so much in this episode. We talk about changing careers, we talk about building something from the ground up, even in the beginning when you have no idea how to do the things. We talk about having a co-founder or more than one and really identifying what your role is within this. We talk about being a working mum and working out how to prioritize our family life and our working life. I really hope that you enjoy it. I love chatting to Lucy. I've known her for so many years, so I hope you enjoy the conversation. Here it is. Lucy, welcome to the podcast. I am so delighted that you are here. Would you mind just starting by introducing yourself, what you do, what you're all about, so people can get to know you?
Of course. So I am Lucy. I'm a co-founder of a marketplace where you can rent clothes called Loanhood. I'm a mom. I have a daughter who's 2.5. My background is basically fashion, but with a little bit of hospitality thrown in there as well. And yeah, really, really honored to be on your podcast. So thanks for having me.
I'm so delighted. And just I feel really this is a personal one for me because I've seen that kind of, I've known you since your 20s and like going into becoming a mum and doing different things, and it's amazing. So when you were at school, let's go back there. When you were little, what were the things that you were drawn to? What were your skills? Who were you in the classroom basically, who would be like, oh, Lucy will be great for that?
I don't know if I ever had like a career in mind. I just always wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
You knew me in my 20s, and I definitely had a lot of fun throughout my life. Always, I think somebody once said to me, like, God, you're always smiling. Like, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a very generally happy person. I love my friends and my family. I love going out. I loved partying when I was younger. And I just really wanted to be around people, connect people, bring people together. Always out and about doing things. I'm not a person that can sit still. I'm always the one that's chatting. And maybe I wasn't that focused at school. But I was always kind of one of the teachers' favorites because I was always happy and like answering the questions and trying to get involved, but not very academic. It wasn't really my forte.
And that's how I think of you as well. Like you're always that person that you almost have that sixth sense of like that person's on their own. That person hasn't got a drink. Like let's bring them together. Another thing that like really strikes me about you is that you have great vision. You have big ideas and you get really sort of stuck in. Where does that come from for you? And I know that sometimes people they either have like lots of action where they do kind of busy work, or they have a big vision but they're not quite sure how to make it happen. But I've really noticed that you can do too. So how did you always have that skill, or how have you sharpened it over time?
Um, Good question. I think the work that I've done since like hitting my 30s. So I worked as a model agent for most of my career, and that was great and fun, but it wasn't really fulfilling. And I started to have a lot of guilt, and especially with the way climate action is happening and the climate crisis that we're experiencing, I started to feel really bad about not doing something.
Mhm.
And I knew that I had to put myself out there, and not everyone can do that. I have to be the one that goes out and works extra hard and put the time in because I'm that person that can thrive on that. I don't get like, I'm quite resilient. So I was like, right, I have to put myself in that situation and just work really hard to try and make a change and make um, everything that we do more sustainable and give people options to be more sustainable in an easy and manageable way, because we've already got so much on our plate anyhow and so much stresses from the world in general. How can we bring sustainability into people's lives in an easy and engaging, fun way? So that's kind of why I got into the restaurant. And then, of course, why we created Loanhood.
Yeah. And you've always worked with other people. How have you found building an idea and building a vision with other people, have you found that you've really thrived in that environment? And also, have you really sort of connected with your own skill set and been strategic, I guess, and looked for the opposite things? Or has it come from a moment of, yes, I like this and I like this too, and I think we could make this happen?
I think I am innately quite bossy. And a
Great.
bit like my mom, is my mom's really bossy, and it's yeah, something that people always kind of come to me to be like, oh, you organize that and you do this. And I love a spreadsheet. I love organizing things.
Perfect.
But that is also can be my downfall as well. And what I've learned over the years is to really listen to people, be patient, which I got a lot from the model industry, be very patient, and try and collaborate. I don't believe in kind of one person at the top, like dictating to everybody else. It has to be something that we're all passionate about, that we're all working towards, and that every person's opinion is valuable. Everyone brings something to the table, and you might work in very different ways. And my co-founders and I at Loanhood, we do work in different ways, and you have to kind of work on those differences and really make them work to bring balance to relationships and business. And yeah, that's something that I've definitely had to hone over the years. And like you said, I've always worked with friends. So my best friend Jenny and I started a restaurant, and that was really trying on our relationship because we work in such different ways. And we came up the other side, and we're still best friends. But yeah, when you work with friends, you really have to understand that this is a business, and that kind of comes first in those work hours, and then just forget about it when you're outside of work, and really put the time and effort in to keep that friendship going. Put time in where we don't talk about the business. And Jade and I now have Loanhood, and we try and have that friendship time where we just go out, we don't talk about work, and we just get drunk and have a laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so for so many of us, we've seen those female entrepreneur duos, in the Sunday papers where they kind of just look really happy and great and it's all going well. And actually, when you're growing a business or when you're growing a project or you're trying to get something off the ground, quite often, however much planning you do, you don't meet things until you meet them. And then it's that moment of, okay, so what have we got then? How are we going to do that? And I think working on yourself as well, which you do brilliantly in terms of being self-aware and recognizing your own skills. And if this doesn't sound too dippy hippie, but like doing your own healing, doing your own unraveling, like, oh, I always do that thing. Maybe it's not going to be great in this scenario. Maybe I need to look at that. It brings up so much stuff. So when you begun the Loanhood journey, how did it start? And you mentioned you really recognize the sustainability importance. How did it start to move from being an idea into a business?
So Loanhood started around 2019. So before there was any kind of other rental platforms. And Jade was studying her master's at London College of Fashion, exploring the future of fashion. And I had just sold the restaurant and gone back into the model industry and was just like, oh, like I love my team, but it's just not fulfilling. And I feel like I need to be doing something to alleviate the pressures that we have in the fashion industry. And then Jen, my other co-founder, had also left her kind of freelancing work and was only working with sustainable clients. And Jade came to me with her idea, like this peer-to-peer fashion rental marketplace. And we're already doing in the fashion industry. We're already renting clothes to one another. How can we use tech to make this available to as many people as possible? So we set out testing the idea with clothes swaps, which is a really kind of entry-level way to experience that circular economy and just bring your clothes, get clothes in return. Like you feel great, you got new stuff, new to you items, and then we're alleviating the pressures on the charity sector and just not sending stuff to landfill.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea was born.
Situation. You can hear what people are saying. You can get all that language and that tone. And I think sometimes we can all sit behind our computer and say, this is what our ideal client avatar looks and feels like. And actually it becomes like a weird computer generated version. And actually you want all those sound bites of somebody going, bloody hell, I hated all of my wardrobe. And now I've got like this one thing which makes me feel like the me 15 years ago. And that those things when you're building are so in back because it's about real people.
100%. We used to do surveys, and like the first close what we did, we kind of had like no idea of how it would go. And we sold like 500 tickets because it's a free event. Like 30% of those people showed up, but there was a queue out the door. We like swapped about 800 items. It was crazy, like intense. And people loved it. And we're like, wow. And then since then, it's just been a sellout every single time we do it. Um, and we'll be doing a month-long close up in the summer with a big industry partner, which I can't mention yet, but that'll be really exciting. So clothes swapping is becoming more mainstream, and that's just one of the pillars that we're really passionate about. So the swapping, which is really entry level, and then you can have the rental, which is a little bit more elevated. It's more that occasion wear. It's more, especially for us, it's kind of one-off pieces. So we work with lots of graduates and emerging designers who have these incredible, one-of-a-kind, really intricate, kind of flamboyant pieces that you're potentially not going to buy, but you would love to wear once or twice.
Yes.
So that's kind of our niche in the rental space.
Yes. It's that sense of like, I think we want to tap into as adults. Like we've both got little girls of similar ages, and Luna's got like this massive mermaid dress. Like she literally looks like she's something from that Channel 4 documentary, The Gypsy Wedding, where I feel like I'd have to shove her into a car. But she like walks into the living room like, I've arrived and this is perfect for me. And I think, you know, in our busy lives, we do want to have those moments where we might not think that within our monthly budget we can buy that thing, but renting it suddenly makes it feel doable and yeah, and great. So how did you get the word out when you thought, right, okay, we're going to do this thing? And with the first clothes swap, how did you spread the word, and what did that teach you? What did you recognize? I guess were the pieces of the process that needed to get out there?
The marketing has very much been a test and learn process for us. We all had an idea of what we thought would work. You're like, oh, you do paid advertising, you get loads of people, but actually those people aren't necessarily your advocates. So what has worked really well for us is these kind of in-person events. And when you're a tech company, you want to keep away from anything that's in real life. You've got to everything that's scalable and can be on a mass scale, and everything's automated. But actually, with fashion, it's such a personal thing. You want to touch and feel those clothes. And I think that's really been lost with e-commerce. And what we find with the younger generation is that they don't understand the quality of clothes because they're so used to wearing fast fashion pieces from Zara or H&M. So when they come to one of our events and they try on like a tailored jacket in like heavy velvet that's like lined with silk, and it's like £1,000 to buy, but you can rent it for like 70 quid. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they're starting to embody their alter ego. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be this person today. And especially after the pandemic, when everything just went flat and we all just went into sweats and, you know, leisure wear every day, we want to bring back that kind of be stand out, be different, and don't show up to something in the same Zara dress that everyone else is wearing. Like have something amazing and really have that self-expression.
Yes.
So those in real life events are really important to us. We do fashion rental studios, we do panel discussions, we do just regular clothes swap pop-ups, and just trying to get in front of as many people as possible. But because this is such a behavior shift, we need to educate people about why we're doing rental, why it's important, why it's different to resale, and how they can be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what have you found the feedback to be? Like, what are people saying when you talk to your customers, and how has that informed where you go next?
It's so important to speak to your customers all the time and understand their feedback. What we find can happen a lot with customer feedback is that they tell you things that you want to hear. They want to please you. They're like, oh, I love the platform, it's great. And then they don't rent. You're like, okay, you said you really wanted it. We've given you what you wanted. Why are you not doing the action that we expect you to do?
Yes.
And I think
the phrase of, oh my God, it's amazing. And you're like, but are you going to go and eat that food? Like, oh,
exactly.
What a great idea. But are you going to, like, where's your money, mate? What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. We need people to making that next step. And what we know is when people do rent, they'll rent again. and they get the buzz of it. There's still lots of issues with rental. It's because it's so much in its infancy. There's issues with the delivery, understanding fits, all those kind of things, which as an industry, we're all working on together is to try and solve those issues through AI, through central locations where you can drop off and pick up items, etc. But yeah, we just need to get people to make the first movement, and then we know that they'll start to do those actions again and again. It's like when Airbnb started, everyone was like, "Oh, I don't want to sleep in someone else's bed."
Yeah. In my house while I'm away? No way.
Yeah, they're gonna steal everything. And it's like I Airbnb my house all the time, and like more and more. No, sorry, like more often now, I just leave more and more stuff in there, and it's like, oh, it's fine. They're not gonna steal.
And when we have friends and family, like sometimes, you know, they will be telling us about the great Airbnbs that are like in our area. They're like, there's actually 3 within a 0.8 mile radius.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm so glad about that. But yeah, it's all of those moves of thinking and working in a different way. And so when you've been building this, how have you really brought that assurance in? Like, how have you, did you have to have a sit down and go, okay, there's a missing gap between I want to do this thing and then the action? Did you go deep into how can we make this process easier? And I guess you were doing it from a technology point of view, but also a real life person point of view as well.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work of digging down deep into personas, like who is our ideal persona, and that's really changed over the last couple of years. When we started to learn and understand and go, right, that's not going to happen right now. And also on the technology front, like we don't have any tech backgrounds. We've never built an app. And we started that build ourselves with an Indian developer. And we quickly realized that we needed somebody with experience to project manage it. But that in itself is such an exciting process. And now we understand like how to build an app. I mean, we couldn't do it on our own, but we've learned so much. And that's the exciting thing about a startup. You're constantly learning, you're constantly honing your skills, learning new skills. We all came from the fashion industry, but now we know how to raise finance. We know how to do marketing. We know how to do tech. We can be product managers. It's so exciting, that part of it. And you kind of know that you're going to come out of having a startup, and if you want to have another one, then you have that experience of people going to go, oh yeah, they did Loanhood. That's great. Awesome. So it's just, yeah, you're just really developing yourself, and working on myself is something that I've always done, more so in my later life, but like reading books, like The Slight Edge and The Secret and all those kind of things where it can be a bit hippy dippy, but actually it's all giving value to yourself. And I think that's so important to do.
Yeah, I definitely work on the basis of like, if I feel good, I'm going to do good, or I'm going to do better.
Yeah.
And like the last few nights, like we've had really poor sleep in our house, and it always seems to be me who's like, you know, dealing with all the things and, you know, getting up and all the rest of it. Or that's how it was. And I had to have a team chat with my family the other day of just saying, we need to work on this sleep scenario because none of us are gaining from it. And then even my 3-year-old was like, yes, okay, like taking notes. I was like, you stay in your bed. But it's those sorts of things of really working out how you work best. And I'm really interested in this. I guess it's like a straddle of being in the present moment of, I need to do these to-do lists. I need to record this podcast today. I need to get back to that person. I need to book that venue. But also, how do you carve out that time for yourself to be in the big picture version? Like whether that, and I think sometimes the 5, 10 year, 15-year plan, especially with the startup, is it just feels like it's in Timbuktu, far away. But maybe if you're thinking like 6 months in advance, how do you find that balance of being in those two headspaces?
I wish I could say I had the answer, but I definitely don't have balance in my life at the moment. Obviously, having a child and a startup is a whole different ball game. Like when I had the restaurant, I didn't have a child. I had a boyfriend, and I worked crazy hours. Like it didn't matter. In fact, I didn't never burn out, but I knew that I could work like hour after hour. It didn't matter. If I wanted a day off, I took a day off and just did nothing. Whereas now, like I have to get up very early, I have to look after my daughter, I have to be present with her in the morning, but I'm always rushing because I've got to be at work, and I've been at work all day, got to pick her up from nursery. when would I have time to actually go to the gym? Or like, I love yoga so much and never get to go anymore. And it's something that I have sacrificed for my child and for my business. And it's probably not healthy right now, but it's something that I'm going, right, I have to time box this and go, like on Sunday, Mother's Day, I'm taking myself swimming
Yeah.
on my own. And I'm like, I will do that. But it's like those kind of things for myself. It's either eats into my time, my child, or into my business.
Yeah.
So I've made those decisions not to do it, but it was something that I will change in the future and try harder at.
And I think there are seasons for things as well. And I often say this to clients.
Exactly. Winter is just like, may as well just work the whole time. Summer is a different beast. I will be out in that sunshine.
I know I saw a blue sky today and I was like, hello, spring,
Yes.
you come on in. But I think you're right, because this sense of when we see people tracking like their morning routine on Instagram, and this is like how you become a successful entrepreneur. Yes, I'm sure all of those things help, but I usually have two children in my bed in the morning, like, hi.
Yeah.
And, Oscar will be asking for his third breakfast by 5 to 8, because he's just in that, like, this, you open the cafe and I eat the food. And like,
Yeah.
this is the way that we roll. And I think that's a really great point that you made, that we just have to sometimes go, this is what it is, and I'll just put that to the side and then I'll revisit that later. I feel like that a little bit with friends over the last, well, certainly
Yeah.
pandemic. It's like, I'm here and I can chat and call, but you can't see each other every weekend or every Tuesday night or whatever it is anymore. And I think people understand, but there's sacrifice, surely.
There's expectations from people these days, though, to do it all, to be really healthy, to have your like mental health in check, to work really hard, to be a great mom, to do all the activities, and like it's all going to work, and like have an abundance of money to do all these things with your personal trainer or your yoga instructor. It's like it's just not reality.
No.
It's just not possible for everybody. And I think we just have to be honest about it and be like, I'm not going to yoga anymore. It's all right. I know I should be, but it's fine. I'm all right.
Absolutely. And that also, that we can still do it anyway. We can still be in the conversation. We can still build a business anyway. And I think that is something that social media can sometimes hold us back from actually getting started or taking the next step, because we are seemingly not feeling or displaying this perfect entrepreneurial lifestyle. And for most people, they don't have time to film it. They are literally like, hi, I've got a meeting. And
Yeah.
Matt and I, our voice notes to each other are suddenly like, can you pick up pasta, we've run out, bye. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of how you distribute the jobs, the load, the vision between all three of you, did you come up with a plan of saying, look, I'm good at this, I'll take this? Or has it sort of been a work in progress of making moves going forward?
Definitely a work in progress, because we didn't really have those skill sets. So it was kind of like we fell into them and like, okay, you do that, you try this, can you do this? And we kind of fell into the roles. And then we started going, right, let's bring this back and do some workshops on what that role entails. Like, I'm in charge of marketing, or I'm in charge of finance. Like, what does that actually mean? And like, what am I supposed to be doing? So this year's has been really good. Like January, spent a lot of time just doing workshops, lots of different workshops using Miro, all work remotely, digging deep into our personas, digging deep into the roles, like just taking it back to basics and going, right, who are we as a business? Like, how can we evolve? How can we evolve as individuals? Like, we're totally different to the people that started this pre-pandemic. I had a child, Jade's now doing a PhD. It's all evolved. So who are we now? Where do we want this business to go? And how can we make it a success? And sometimes you have to, like, we always wanted to be a fully circular business and just purely rental, but right now that's just not possible. We have to kind of give people what they want to make the business a success.
Yes.
So although we have really strong beliefs and values of what we believe people should be doing, we can't make them do it. We have to do it take them on a journey with us and educate. And it's a process. And that's something that we were like, oh, it's so annoying, but fine. We'll work together, and let's stick around. Like, we can't do good work if we don't make the business a success and we close the doors. Like, we have to make it a financially stable business. And sometimes that means doing things that we don't always want to do.
Mhm.
Um, but as long as we have our values in the back of our minds and we know that we're not doing anything dodgy, it's fine to do things like now we're doing a little bit of selling, but only with sustainable brands,
Yeah.
not part of the circular economy, but that will help us, keep the business moving forwards. And then we can educate those customers on where those designers have come from. They're making small batch collections that's made sustainably. If we can support them, then we get more people like them, and the fashion industry will change inherently.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always things that we're like, oh, should we do this? Should we do that? And try to prioritize. It's a constant juggle and a constant evolution, but just
And
got
I
to just
think
keep
that
moving forwards.
what you touched on of like, I know I have it as a freelancer as well, or within my personal brand I have an income pie, and I think never I really noticed it in the pandemic that there was that sense of like, okay, all of the TV and film industry and theatre industry, commercials a little bit as well, it's all shut down. Okay, great, so only one of us is working, we've got a 5-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. How do we play this then? And I think it's okay to be flexible within that. And I think you've actually really just hit the nail on the head in terms of, if you work out what your pillars is or your overarching ethos, what you stand for, then what is happening underneath that will make sense because it's then in alignment. And when you do that work, you can have that moment of saying, oh yeah, that fits, or no, it's just not going to work because it conflicts with our views. And I think sometimes there's this sense that people feel like they're in this, oh, I don't know, well, maybe I should say yes because they're a nice person, or this could lead to something. And actually, if you link it back to your ethos, then the decision is almost made for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have that a lot with, like, we do lots with students and graduates and universities, and it doesn't pay us. It can take up a lot of our time, but we know that that is one of, like, educating the next generation and giving them the tools to change the fashion industry is like right up there with what our mission is. So we make the time, give them the energy that they need. Um,
Absolutely. And they want it as well. That's the thing I'm certainly finding with my 7-year-old. Like he said to me, Granny bought some broccoli with plastic on. I told her not to. And I was like, yeah, good.
Amazing.
Because there's
Yay.
all those sorts of things. And my mum does an online shop, and she just orders the broccoli and it comes with plastic on. And then suddenly it's like, oh, actually, I'm going to request not for that, or I'm going to buy my broccoli from the fruit and veg. And it's a small thing, but I definitely feel like that from the younger generation. They're asking for those things. They're pushing us. They're shifting the world. And I don't want to put all that pressure on, like, yeah, we've messed it all up and now you've got to come and sort it all out. But yeah, it's a good conversation. Can we talk about technology and how that conversation started of asking for what it is that you want, but maybe not necessarily having the language or the jargon to be able to make that happen?
100%. The being what we started out as a fashion business and what we turned into was a tech startup. And that is a whole different beast. The expectations of a tech company, the language, like you said, it's the practices that they use, coding, it's completely alien to us. And it's something that was really interested to me in the beginning anyhow, something I've always kind of like listened to podcasts about Silicon Valley, and oh yeah, it sounds amazing. And it's a journey for sure. Like, we took a tech advisor on late last year, and what he taught us in a few weeks was more with that we'd learned in the previous year, of how these things work. It's very kind of, there's lots of structures in place. And once you kind of understand that, you're like, okay, like I can be a product manager. I can't be a coder because that's a totally different skill set, but I can understand how they're building.
Yes.
Um, and then you read the books, and it's all about, learning and iterating, and using platforms like Figma to design things and test prototypes and get the feedback from the customer before you go into the build, working in sprints and different platforms that you use. We've tried like 4 or 5 different platforms to manage the build. So even just learning that and what those platforms are, and servers, and yeah, there's just so many different like terms and words that you've had no idea what they meant, and now it's like, yeah, I can talk about this.
Yeah. And then you find yourself educating other people. And I'm like, God, I sound really smart here. Look at me. Look at me with my technology. And I think you've made a great point of understanding your skill set, but also if you're not the coder, knowing what the process is and knowing what to look for. So I've had that with my coaching stuff, is that sometimes people always have that thing of like outsource, get an expert to do it. But I always have to, and maybe this is like the acting part of my business as well, I always have to be in the customer journey. I have to think like, oh, how can I make this person feel supported? What happens? What page are they going to see? What does the checkout look like? There's no point for me of, because that's when I lose sleep about it, because I want to know that the thing actually works and that everything can kind of be aligned and actually work and get the end goal. In terms of where you're going next, what can you talk about? What do you want to shout about? Where should people go to find out more and begin renting that first rental? Once you have that first one, you'll be coming back for more.
Yay! So we've got a very, very exciting year ahead of us. So please download the app. It's just Loanhood on the App Store and Google Play. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We're just Loanhood. And we've also really expanding our events business. So we've always done these clothes swaps and fashion rental studios, but now we're making them bigger and better for 2023. Like I said, we've got this big pop-up in the summer, which I can't mention yet, but if you check out our socials, it'll be announced soon. And we've got an Earth Day clothes swap in Hackney on April 22nd. We'll be doing lots more swaps, a lot more fashion rental studios across the nation, not just in London. I live in York, so I'm very keen to get as much happening in the north and Scotland as possible.
Come on.
Yay! So and we're bringing in resale to the business as well through an external partner, which I can't mention again just right now, but it will be happening so that we can offer people swapping, resale, and rental. And we actually have, I don't know when this is going out, but we have a pop-up at the end of March on the 30th and 31st, which is in South Molton Street.
So good. What a location.
Yeah, so it's part of another like sustainable marketplace. So this company called The Circle, which is a resale platform, are kind of running it. So we're just going in with a couple of rails and really showcasing some of our independent brands and emerging designers.
Amazing.
That'd be really fun.
Amazing. Well, I've got one final question, which is a new question to the podcast, which is, what do you, and I believe in like declaring and sharing it is my whole thing. Like, what do you need help with? Who would you love to meet? How can we really support your business? And like, what's the best thing that we can do to help Loanhood grow, or you personally?
The best thing for anybody that's listening to the podcast is to download the app and give us feedback. Like, what do you like? What's your thoughts about rental? Like, we just want to learn what holds people back, what makes people want to rent. And I think on a personal level, it's always just about how do you find that balance, and how can we support each other as working mums? Like, I know the budget's coming out today with this new information about childcare, and it's bringing the 30 hours in earlier, which will be a godsend for any parent. But yeah, how do we be present with our kids?
Well, I mean, like, it's always such a like long-winded conversation. And I think things like paperwork and form filling, like they just need to be simplified for people, because it's really difficult to navigate. And I would
100%.
say that I'm a clever person. I mean, not that clever, but I can understand things, and I know so many people find all sorts of things quite tricky, and it just needs to be easy so we can do what we want to do.
Yeah, the government needs to up its game for sure. We have the highest rates of childcare in the world. It's like outrageous how much money I spend to be able to run my business. And that's why we lose so many women to having time to go and like look after their children, which is of course an absolute pleasure and joy, but we also need to be in the workforce so that we can have our voices heard.
Absolutely. Because I don't know about you, I mean, obviously there were a lot of sleepless nights and tricky things, but certainly when I had Oscar, I and now that I've sort of got a boy and a girl, I've definitely got a boy and a girl. They're just not here today. But that sense of, it gave me that sense of ambition again, and like, oh my goodness, right, I've got to be on my game here. I've got these little people that rely on me. Like, who do I want to be in the world? And it felt like a software update. And obviously behind that, there's a lot of, oh, this doesn't work anymore. This is you're seeing the spinning disc. But you're right, we need women, we need mums, we need people with voices, we need women in the technology space, and I'm
100%.
We're doing that.
Yeah, doing it for the women.
doing it. Lucy, I've loved it. Thank you so much for chatting today. Everybody go and follow Loanhood, go and rent your first item, and send some pictures, let us know what you're wearing. And already you're inspiring me with that sense of a velvet long coat. Like, I feel like I need to be that person for the day.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for having me, Nikki.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.